Boo boo doo doo. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. As always, we will give our fellows a couple minutes to join up before we kick off. All right. Looks like we've got a nice group joining this morning. Thanks for everyone for joining. We have a pre-submitted question today. Let me get that post pulled up on a different screen here, and we'll kick in with that. There's our question. Nope, Sabrina had it. Decisions, lunch and learn, pre-submitted question. Where is it?
I also posted in the chat, Will.
Okay, thank you for working around my terrible ability to search my email. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Will Pedersen. I run support and success here. A quick note about a couple sort of housekeeping pieces. We've got a Decisions Days event coming up in Norfolk, October 4th through 6th. You can see the topic list here on the bottom. We can and will post the registration link in the chat if anyone's interested in registering. It's going to be a relaxed, sort of just some breakout sessions, some discussions about our company and our product strategy going forward, opportunity to connect with the teams and hopefully share some success stories with you and other members of the Decisions developer community. So excited for you to offer that up. Hopefully, the way that everything's going, that things will be okay in October. But I know that a lot of us are excited to try to get back in contact now that knock on wood, things are doing better than they were, about a year ago. Okay, so let's start with our first question here. I need to build an integration where Decisions users can assign a form to a guest user for reviewing and fill the form. In turn, the guest user must have the option to assign it back to the Decisions user after it's revision and filled up. The revision steps can be repeated many times on the same form between Decisions user and guest user until Decisions user will consider the form properly set up to move to a different step. Both Decisions user and the guest user must have on the form option to save the work and resume later. I was advised to use case entities, but I am still wondering if I can use database structures because I don't need a folder process in place. The challenge is when the save button is clicked on the form, I want the form to be saved in the database and the assignment in the inbox to stay valid. Here I'm referring to the situation when the form was reviewed by guest and pushed back. The same on the guest side when the click is made. Okay, lots to cover here. John, so okay, what happened to my local? Let me get my local up and running. Something just happened. Just a moment.
I didn't notice that I am mute, so I'm here. Sorry.
Hey, hang on, no problem. Here we go. It's an inauspicious start for my presentation today. What is wrong? Hey, there we go. Odd. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a place for us to work in. And we'll name this thing 8:30. Okay, so there's a couple questions here. Are you familiar with how to assign a task to a guest?
Yes, I do. I have. So I know how to assign the tasks to the same user decision. I know how to assign a task to a guest. It's working fine. So that's fine.
Your question is about this looping, this saving piece?
Yes, looping, that's one challenge because I realized that when the user gets assigned back, this is what I found. When a user gets assigned back to the user decision, when I click, I am lost. I mean, the
inner data is gone.
Yeah, that is gone, and I didn't save it. Here I am still not sure. Should I save it? It's saved automatically. I know how to save it. I did. I use a create, the steps. So this is the challenge, and the big challenge is regarding with how to hold the assignments URL versus both of them, URL and assignment from the inbox. I want them to stay valid until the form is assigned. So when I click save, I want the data to be saved in the database, but I want the assignment in the inbox, or if you want URL assignment, to stay valid until it's assigned back, or when the user's decision, in our case, will click and move to another step. So here's the scenario.
Yeah, so to get this sort of save behavior, this is something that is takes a little bit of work and probably shouldn't, but what you have to do is a couple things. So I'm going to create a flow here, and in this flow, I'll put an assign form. Just create a quick, simple form here. And I'll just name this thing email address. And I'll have a date picker here, which is date of birth. Email address will be a text box, which is email address. And then I'll put another label here for date of birth. And I'll go ahead and collapse this down a little bit. Now I'll save this, connect my button, and I'll set this form to assign from in session. And I'll assign this to administrators. And the assignment name will be, complete data entry task. The action name will be complete. And then I will go ahead, and so this should be set up. So what I hear you asking, and John, I might be wrong here, is if I'm a user, and let's do this, I run this flow. Let me duplicate my tab here. So I'm going to run this main flow. I'm going to get an assignment. And if I look at my inbox, which is here, I'll have complete data entry task, and I can complete this. And if I enter in an email address, such as like will@decisions.com, but then I exit this form, I want that to still be valid if user comes back in. I want will@decisions.com to be in the text box still.
Yes, you did. You exit, but think about scenario when you still enter something on the form, you still put something there, but still you don't complete. You said, right, oh, I am going to resume later.
Correct. Yes. So, right. Yeah. So make sure I understand that scenario here exactly. So this is fine. So what we have to do is two things. One of them is, then this is set by default, but we need to look at our assignment settings. If we look at assignment settings here and scroll down, we want to set reuse assignment to be either always or if same assignee, but likely it's going to be always here. And what this will allow us to do is craft a bit of a loop back behavior. We're going to add another outcome button to our flow, and we're going to have that outcome path loop back to the form, but the IDs of this form will remain the same. And once we can pair that with some, I guess, clever mapping on our form to allow those entered values to remain, as long as a user clicks a save current work button is what we'll see here. So reuse assignment, I'm going to set this to always, and there's some other additional options here. I'll leave those false for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this form. I'm going to add a new outcome path button here called save for later. Oops. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to save this and come back into my flow. And I'm just going to put a placeholder step here. I'm assuming you're talking about using a simple data structure. That's fine. You can use a simple data structure for this if you'd like. But what we'll see here is I'm trying to see if I can get this to be a little bit easier to read. This would be this step is doing two things. There's probably logic here, but if not, it's going to let me just loop back to my form here. Now, if I save this and then launch this flow again, so go ahead and just run this flow and come back to my inbox. So here it is, 12:08. Is that me? There we go. Complete data entry task. If I run my action, I can see this. And if I enter in some value and click save for later, I'm going to get a pop-up here. I can control this. And if I come back to my form, I'll see my values aren't saved, but because I didn't change my mappings. So right now I'm keeping the same assignment, but I haven't fixed the mapping piece here. So what I'm going to do is come here in my flow, and I'm going to declare two pieces of data on a create data step here: email address and date of birth. One a string, one a date time. Okay. And I'm going to map those into my form here. So if I can go ahead and look at input mappings, and I can map in date of birth to DOB, and it has already auto mapped email address for me. And then here, what I'll do is on the output for my button, let me make a change here. I need to edit this. I need to make sure that these show as save for later will be optional. Save for later will be optional. I need to set them to be able to be passed out on the outcome path here, which is what I was just doing. I'm going to save this. Now, if I look at my form step, I have two outcome paths: button, which I don't care about, and save for later. And on this, I'll use the output property change value. And I will change for date of birth, I'll change date of birth. And on email address, I will change. It's already doing it for me. Wonderful. Change email address. Now, if I save this and run this flow again, I'll have a new assignment in my list, 12:13. I can then complete this assignment. And again, I can put some garbage text in here and click save for later. Now, if I come back, it's terrible, that slide window's not going away. And I can click complete. I'll have the values entered. How do I get that to not use the slide out? I should know how to do that better. But so all we did, basically what we're doing is ensuring that the assignment, that the reuse assignment property is set to true, so that when the workflow engine hits the step again, it uses the same assignment ID. This will keep your emails consistent. So the same, you're going to build up like a email, like you've looked at to assigning to guests, right? I think like task guest. So
I think I use it. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I use it. Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at this document probably using guest account.
I did.
Right.
I'm using it.
So you're building up a custom email, and in that email, you're providing like a link to the assignment ID or to a flow. right? And as long as we have reuse assignments set to either always or if same assignee, we can ensure the assignment ID stays the same if the flow loops back in this type of behavior. If not, we'll get a new assignment each time, and that's not what we want. And if we pair that with the fact that we can declare variables earlier and then use change value to make sure that they're getting saved, they're getting updated as the form moves through, you can create what is effectively is a save button. But we know as workflow designers that it's actually just designed. We've just designed like a loop back pattern with those two settings in place. And this gives you that like return to work later or return to finish type behavior that I think you're after here.
Okay, question is when you save into database, for example, what I tried, anytime when I fill up the form, the next step is to save in the database. How?
Sure.
I create the database structure and I use the step which is provided, create data, you know, blah, blah, the name. And this is the way. And I believe it's working fine in this way with this, what you show me.
Yeah, that's probably what I would assume you're doing here, right? You're using a create step to save the data into the database, or create an insert or update step, or some sort of way to create or update the information entered on the form here.
Now,
that sounds fine.
Think about this. Let's say you have a guest. Now, guest is not part. It's outside of the decision. It's guest. Now, guest will get the URL link, and he will have the options to save in the database as well, like the user's decision. Okay, so works the same. No difference in this case.
It'll be slightly, well, in that example, like in here, I don't think you're actually giving them direct access to the assignment, are you? Yeah, you're actually building up a custom, maybe you are. No, this is guest, that's fine. Yeah, using guest account for tasking, shared flow, assigned to guest. Yeah, it'll be the same. It would be the same if you use assigned to guest, yes. It won't be any different. What you'd probably have is like this is like internal assignee or something, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd have this kind of like if we group these, and we could, no.
Yeah, and an external one, I can use a different one. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. You just have like two patterns of the same type of thing.
Well, that's doable. It's no problem.
Does that get you what you need?
Yeah, I think it's okay. If I do this, perhaps I will accomplish my question, my task. Yeah,
so we'll post. John, I'm not sure you've joined these before. We'll send you a link to the YouTube recording once we have it posted, so you can view this at your leisure. But let us know if this works or you get stuck on anything. We're happy to help.
And if you, I don't know how many guys are besides me, but another question which I want to ask you, I made some research on forum is there a way, I know I found some ways to open two forms in the same time. I found a way on the forum, but one thing I didn't find is, can you pass, if I open a form on top of another form, let's say, and I want the data which I manipulate on the second form, I want to be passed to the previous one. Now, remember, both of them are now kind of active. It's possible to do such things?
Yeah, you're talking about sub-dialogue flows here, right? That's what we call these things.
Okay. So it's doable. Okay, I will look on the forum more, and perhaps I will.
I actually think we answered this question on a previous Lunch and Learn in some detail.
You did? Okay, good.
Maybe we could try to find that, Sabrina, and see if we can't shoot John a link to that particular video. But if you look here, this is a sub-dialogue flow example, sub-dialogue data flow. And if I can find the right image here, if I look at this image, you'll see this is a sub-dialogue flow, and there's an outcome here called change data. And we can pass data to this and then let the parent form consume it. So you can absolutely do this. And I believe we should even have some documents, some doc tickets created from some of that work that we did. I'm not sure if our doc member can confirm or deny that. But you absolutely can, and sub dialogues are the way to accomplish that. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think I finish here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I am
Happy to
listening.
help,
I am
John.
still listening. I am still listening you, but I finished
Oh,
my
sure.
question.
Sure, understood. Thank you for the question. It's a great question. Okay. Looking back at our list here, what other questions, team, do we have? You guys can use the raise hand feature, ask in chat, or ask in QA. Let me know. Hey, go ahead, Jimmy.
Hey, well, so I've got an issue with rule flows on validations. I can get it to work with text boxes, but I'm not able to get the validation to work with date fields. It says every date that I put is an invalid date, and it won't continue if I do a fatal.
So you're writing like a validation rule and then putting a date input for the rule?
Correct.
And then no matter what date you give it, it prevents the form from moving forward?
Correct.
All right, let's quickly see. What version am I on right now? Well, that's not the right button. I think I'm on 7.4. Okay. So let's see here really quick. Date validations. So I'll go ahead and quickly create a flow and a form. Oops, not what I wanted to hit. Form. Yep. And all right, I'll put a date picker here. This will be DOB and a button. All right, and then here, so we are specifically talking about validation rules.
Correct.
All right, so under legacy, I'll come to validation rules.
I'm doing a form flow.
An active form flow?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great. So active form flow. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me add one. Edit rule flow. This will be called check date. We will edit this. All right, and so here we go. Jared, you know these better than me, I think. I think I actually have to look. I use particular steps here, right?
Sure. Yeah. So if you go to we'll go to form rules category.
Is there a validation?
Yeah, there's a set validations.
Set validations. Wonderful.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so
And
we'll
then-
say we'll search for greater. Thank you, sir. That's exactly what I needed. Greater than date, and we'll check to see if the date is greater than, if the date of birth is greater than current date, we'll throw an error. Otherwise, I think we'll do nothing. And then the first date, so end date would be current date time, and first date will be select from flow, date of birth, which is form data, right? Date of birth. Expecting type date time. This is form control data. I guess it will be a value. And then if I get that, form control will be select from flow, form data, date picker. Jared, if I do anything wrong here, please just like yell at me because I'm less familiar with these things. So break level will be constant fatal.
See, I only have one build array. I didn't do the second one. My second one's a constant.
That should be fine. I'm just using build data instead of constant, but that should still, I just prefer this view instead of constant, but that should be fine. That shouldn't make a difference here. And this will be, the message will be, you cannot have a DOB in the future. And then we'll go and end. Go ahead.
There's like another thing you have to make sure, Will, that you need to add before you finish this is every time you set a validation on a control, you must always use the clear validation form rule step, because if that rule triggers and it sets the validation, and since in your rule right here you don't have a clear validation step, it's always going to say, hey, this is invalid because you haven't told the validation to clear when you have good data.
So the first step in my flow needs to be clear validations?
No, so basically the rule is going to be, is this date greater than, X, Y, and Z, right? If it is, then set the validation
on the
that this
other
is fatal.
path.
Exactly. On the other path, you need to say this is valid data, so clear that validation because the validation isn't going to clear by itself.
All right, understood. Thank you. That's helpful. I would have gotten dug out and tripped up on that. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. All right, so we'll run at startup, remove his blocking, and run for outcome. I don't know if this is defaulted to all. Let's just run on outcome button. And let's save this. And okay, let's go ahead and debug. So, okay, so this is, I'll put a date in the past. So that works. And let's put a date in the future. Okay, then that doesn't work. So this is what, is there anything different about what I just did here, Jimmy, than what you might be doing now? Besides that one, the thing you mentioned, I mean, the constant versus build data shouldn't make a difference.
Mine's not date time, it's just date. That's one difference. But I did the exact same thing.
Okay. What form control are you using? Are you using a date picker?
Yeah. Yep, it's the date picker one.
Okay, so you're using a normal date picker, but your rule is it actually the validation rule itself? Let me come here into 830 date validations, form 1, and look at my active form flow here. It's probably an issue with using a date, if I had to just guess, instead of a date. So if I look at, when you look at yours, what do you like? You should be able to see the active form flow run in the debugger, right? So if I run this with a future date, and then I look on the left, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this and look on the left-hand side. I can see my rule flow ran once. And then, well, the first time, why did this blow up? Because of null. Cannot be null. So this is the first run where it fails to run because the date is actually null because I'm running it at startup. That's expected. We'd probably want to handle that a bit, and then this is me seeing my rule flow run. Like, what's doing in the debugger when you run it?
Let me run it. I've got that one tied to a drop down to trigger it. Maybe that's my.
You should see, you could confirm if it's triggering or not on the left-hand side for sure.
I don't have the trigger on the date field, so it's not triggering the flow whenever it runs. I bet.
Now looking at, I want to learn something about active form flows here. If I look at form rules, how do I specify? Now in the old style, I would specify the trigger at this level. So the trigger for this one is set here. Exit value, interesting, okay.
But you have it running on outcome.
I did set it to run on outcome. So the question is, if it's deselected here, does it run at all? It might not. It might have to specify to run.
What happens there is if you leave that button unchecked, then if your rule finds an invalid date, it will still allow the form to proceed. Adding it on the outcome stops it from proceeding.
Well, yeah, it used to be that it was always run on all, except you deselected that, and then you would select which outcome to run on, right? Like in 6 and before.
Correct. So in 6, since we use validation rules, that's checked by default where it automatically run on the outcomes. But in active form flows, you have to specify it to run on the outcome to say, hey, stop this form if there's an invalidate here. So
that's probably the missing piece if I had to guess here then, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think we should probably set that by default, so you don't have to know what that is, but I guess it's a different conversation.
Yeah, and then the triggers here, the value change enter exit, that's the same how you want that active form flow to run.
Yeah, I'll play with it. And Jared, I was waiting for this call before I put in that support ticket from our Slack from Friday. So.
Oh yeah. I'm not trying to. There's also a YouTube video on active form flows. I can post that for y'all guys if you guys want to see that as well. That just goes over validations, setting validations, adding up values, and all that stuff. So if you want it's just over active form flow. So you can feel free to use that.
Clearly, I need to watch this. My ego won't let me learn anything from you, Jared. I can't abide by it. Just kidding. Oh, yeah. Clear, you've taught me so much so quickly. All right. Jimmy, anything else related to that?
Nope, that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, sir. All right, Caleb's got a question here. I could use some help with my flow. I've imported a constant data file Excel, and after that I'm stuck. I want to match a dynamic value provided by the flow to a value within column 1 of my data file. After finding the match, I want to return the entire row of data. Okay, so you've got an Excel file. You want to scan through the first column to figure out which row and then get the whole row back and then do something downstream with it. We should be able to do that. Feel free, Caleb, while we're working here, to come off mute if you'd like to chat about the details and ask any clarifying questions while we're working through this. So this is dynamic Excel row logic, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to build a flow, and this flow is going to be dynamic Excel row finder. Now I'll go ahead and put 2 pieces of start information on the start here. It'll be value to find, which will be a string. Oh, good Lord. And this will be current Excel file. And this will be type file data. So let's look at what steps we have. If I look under integration, nope, we move these in 7. If I look under data, Excel CSV, I have get value in row, get value, get row as array. So I need to get the row. I could use get row as array, but this is going to want me to get the row number. So I could use Excel CSV and match, but I don't like that idea off the top of my head. So find, nothing with F, no finds. So get cell, I could get column. Where's that at? Where's get column? Am I missing it? Get worksheet count, get value, get row. This get value takes row and column. I know there's a get column. Am I going nuts? There's a get column step, right? Get formula value, get line count, get numeric value, get row, get value. Am I going nuts? Remove worksheet, replace value in column. There's set values in column. Well, okay. So how big is this and Caleb, is this a large Excel file? Our approach might turn on that depending on how large it is. But let's start with a sort of brute force example here. I could use a for each Excel CSV step. And on here, I could pass in my Excel file, which comes from my current Excel file input. Worksheet number, I think, would be 0. I could ignore first row, change input tile to auto select. And then what I could do is put like a string equals. So string equals advanced step here. And on the next row path of this, I could loop. What I could do is look. I'm just going to look in the first cell, so of the entire thing. So on this, I could say, I could select not current Excel file. It would be current row, field 1 text value equals select from flow value to find. Now, when this will run, and it will run through, it'll ingest the file, and it will ignore, it will only go down the true path here once the row is found. Now, this doesn't output an index, does it? So we'd have to increment an index counter, which is not a problem, but not ideal. So if I look at create data here, I'm going to declare an integer. So data to create would be index counter. This will be type of number, print, and save this. And then what I need to do is find an add step, and every time I loop through this, I'm going to find my index counter and I'm going to add 1 to it, and I'm going to update the value of that index counter. So this is like a plus plus type operation in code. So here is index counter. Now, when I have this in place, what I then would do is come to data, Excel CSV, and it would be get row as array, probably is what I would want here, though there's some other get row options. And in get row as array, I'd pass in the file, which is current Excel file. I'd set file type to auto select. Worksheet number would be whatever the worksheet number is. Then row number is going to be my index counter as a, yeah, I set index counter to decimal. No, why is it showing me it's decimal? Would be index counter. And then ignore first row. I'd want to set this the same as my Excel CSV step. So I would set that to true. And then let's see if I can't really quickly create. Let me do this. I don't know what's in my, I'm going to create a super quick Excel file here. This is test Excel. This will be email and DOB and SSN. This will be will@decisions.com. This 1121, and this is 111, whatever. And then I'll do Sabrina decisions.com 2222 22222. And we'll do Jared@decisions.com. This will be 3323 33333. All right, let me download this as an Excel file. Come back to my process here. And let's go ahead and build ourselves a unit test. So I will drag my test Excel file. My value to find will be Jared@decisions.com. I'll save this as a unit test. Said someone find Jared. Save this. Now I could run this. Okay, so that ran. And what did we get? If I look at input output data, I got nothing. Row number 3, ignore first row, true, worksheet number 0. So first things first, let's see, what did we check here? View input output data. Value 1, will, check Jared was false. So look at execution 2 is Sabrina, Jared false. And then it's so Jared, which outputs is true. So that gives us this. So we take in a file, auto select, row number 3, but we get nothing else. Let's see, what's the output of this? It's a list of strings. We get a null list out. Worksheet number 0. Get worksheet from flow, worksheet 0. I bet this will blow up. Yep. So it is worksheet 0, not worksheet 1. Auto select is true. Current Excel file. Row number is index counter, and row is 3, which was true. Maybe this, has anyone used this step before? Let's try get row. This outputs a string. Let's see here. I know this pattern works. I just don't know about that particular step. File is current Excel file, file type, auto select, worksheet number 0, row counter is index counter. Ignore first row is constant true. Let's try this now. Empty. What's going on here? What am I missing? Worksheet 0, row number, index counter. Debug. Input output data. Row number 3. Test Excel. File type. Output is null. Return this. Okay. I was getting the last row. Interesting. Maybe my math there is wrong. Let's try this. Run this. Get as array. That didn't come in anything, but that's okay. So now here, let's bumbling through this a bit live. Debug this. So now I have a logic that can give me a breakout here. And then with this gives me a comma separated string. And so if I needed to, I could then do a split string step. I could split on comma and have an array of items here. So this is select from flow is get row 1 output, separator is a comma. Now, not sure what's going on with that particular step in the moment right now. I run this, and I get, coming out of here would be a 3-item long array, which would have all of the values for that row. Caleb, is this tracking for you at all? I know I sort of bumbled through that a bit. I know you are on mute. If you'd like to unmute and chat, if not, that's totally fine as well. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so this will work. Ideally, there's probably a more efficient pattern, but a couple hundred rows and 4 columns, this step will handle that just fine. If it was in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, we might want to approach this from a different design pattern. But for a smaller Excel file, this will work. So again, just to walk through it, and we'll send a YouTube link. Create an index counter, load the Excel file to for each Excel CSV, make sure you're incrementing your counter, check the value you need to find, and then now that you have that, you use that row counter, use that index counter to be your row count, pass that into get row. That gives you your row out as a CSV string. You can split that string. Now you've got a list of things that you can use downstream in your flow. All right, so thanks for the question, Caleb. Moving on to Daniel's questions. Little late, but I do have a question. I have a report that we have users launch as built-in guest. The filter of that report impacts all people logged in as guests. Can I clear the filter on load, or B, just remove ability to filter? You can definitely remove the ability to filter on a report. You can, if you put a report on a page in a report viewer, you can absolutely hide the filtering actions. I know that's the less ideal of the two. So right. If you and I are both logged into this report as guest and I refresh it, I send that refresh event to you as well? Or is it a send refresh event step is fired?
It's not so much send refresh. It's more of, so I have a report that sits out there and kind of just HTML, they go to it, the URL they go to.
Right.
And when they launch that URL, if somebody say filtered it and just put in test as the search, then only that test. And if I load it brand new, it's going to load with that test filter already applied. Because everybody's logging in as guest.
Right, because it thinks guest is treating it just like it's an account. Yes. So it would expect it's holding on to the previous filter configuration, because that's what you would want it to do if it was an actual account. So you weren't right. applying the same filters each time.
Right.
Interesting. I don't know if we can stop this right now. Let's see.
I mean, I guess
really interesting.
I mean, removing the filter ability. I guess I was looking for it and couldn't find it easily the other day. I mean, that's a stopgap, right? So that they can't filter it. Give them the ability to export it to Excel, and then they can do whatever filtering they want. It's not on the fly, but that's one option, and I can work with that. But if there was something that when somebody loaded that URL to clear out that filtering, You know,
Right.
whoever still has it applied would still have it potentially. Yes, they're working with it real time, but
So how would I like, there's a sort of painful way I bet we could do this. If we stopped filtering on the report, we can build our own custom flow run part to be a filter. And I know we won't pre-populate those values. Let me just see here really quickly.
yeah, it's
Go
more
ahead.
of I give them a table, right?
Yep.
And you know, within that report, they can do their own filtering.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's not a standard filter.
Right. You're talking about column filters here, right?
Just filtering in general. I mean, so the filtering on the report, they can do it, you know, hey, I'm looking for verbiage within that report, or I'm
Mhm.
filtering it by rows, or, you know, whatever filtering is available.
Yeah. So I wonder if we can inform session. We can redirect. We can redirect, display a report. But I don't think report ID. Interesting. Clear. There's no like report service, clear report filters, clear cache. Let's see here. Internal services, report service. Reporting service, report view service. Clear report filters, report view context ID. How do we get that? So we could clear, there's probably something here. I don't know how to pipe this together just yet, but like imagine something, the question is, would it clear someone's current session or not? One of the things is, I wonder if we could, instead of you giving them a URL directly to the actual report, which it might be what you're doing, or the folder that's holding the report viewer, we might give them a URL to a flow, and we might then specify the folder and report ID here. And then what this inform session does will just basically act as, this flow would act like a redirect. And there is a clear report filter step inside of report view service. So we would have to get report view info is element registration ID, clear report filters. I don't know what a report view context ID is, but we might be able to leverage patterns similar to this once we can figure out what or how or if we can use this step. And we might be able to clear the filters and then redirect the user to that report, so that every time they load it, we run a clear and then a redirect to the report. And then you would just change the URL that you give them. This might work. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way for me to test this.
Yeah, I mean, the URL is pretty much a link, right?
Right.
So I could do that fairly easily, but I get that. So it would go to a flow that would literally just clear it and launch it.
Right, exactly. And it would still be this, it would effectively be the same end result for them. We would just know that there's this intermediate sort of almost like middleware flow.
Mm-hmm.
What is a report view context ID? I don't know what this is. This is probably you having a report view open. How do I get it? How do I get a report view context ID? Get report view data takes in an element registration ID. Let's see here. Let's create a quick report of folders. So this is folder data source, and just put entity name and a couple fields here, and save this. And let's get the report ID. Come back here and put this into our thing. Let's see if this fails or gives us any information back. Run. User ID. Okay. Interesting. Report ID. That's just a value we created, user ID, datetime created. So we have to figure out how to get a report view context ID. Get report view info, get report view context by ID.
It's actually down there about 4 from the bottom. Get view report context.
Get
the same?
view report context is folder ID,
Oh.
and element registration ID. Context type is current user with RTE filters. I'm sure because we have all these services exposed that we can do this. I doubt I'm gonna be able to wing this together on the spot for you. Release report context, run report flow link, save report, save snapshot, get report view context by ID. Outputs a report view context. What is that? What does a report view context have? Report view context gives you a ton of stuff. Filters is a enumerable list. And this is report view context ID. Report view results. Report ID, context ID. Yeah, let me take this one offline and report back to you here. This is a tricky one. I bet someone in the services team has had this requirement before and done it.
So as a stopgap, what's the easiest way to turn it off on the report, just so that they can't do the filter?
Yeah. So put the report on a folder, and you might not be able to do it directly in. Nah, I bet you could. Let's see. Guess report filters. Where's my report? Then I just put a report in. Oh, I put in date validations. Let's see here. If I look at this, I look at settings. And is it actions?
Yeah, I was poking through those and couldn't.
Default view data, can't add columns is default, high default. All right, then let's put this on a page. So let's create report, page dashboard page, and put a report viewer here. And then on this report viewer, we'll pick the thing we just made, which I'm sure is report 1. And then we save this. Then we should be able to. The report viewer gives us some more control. So if I look at view, turn off drill down, can't add columns, hide column header. That's probably the worst way to do it. Allow adjusting of column properties, report selection. Let's see here. Do you see something?
Save, export. Oh, I see.
Show refresh, show export, show favorites, show edit filters. So are you on 7 or 6?
7.
Then 7 probably, if you put none, probably hides everything. Possibly.
Yeah, that whole filters, which is fine. Just getting rid of that filters button there on the header, which is which would work temporarily.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So
I would try that, or you could hide the whole header. You might not want to do that. I don't know if I'm not sure on 7 if hide header hides the entirety of the thing. Column filtering could be disabled. That's probably what you want here. So you can remove the filter action on the column as well. That might be another, if the enable filtering piece doesn't work out. There's also another setting under behavior column filtering where you can enable or disable that. Yeah, I think one of those two is probably the best bet. And if it were come down, worst case, we could figure out some CSS to hide the actual button, to make its display set to none. Hide column headering, column header probably won't do anything. Yeah, I think show edit filters as button. Allow edit report button header. Show save report button, show search, keep search open. Items across intersection. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't know about here.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'll try a couple of those then. That works.
Okay. Yeah, let us know, and I'll find out. I'm sure there's a way for us. I can give you some sort of template flow or sample flow of like clearing all the filters on the report and then redirecting.
Yeah,
using inform session.
Yeah, ideally, I'd like them to be able to do it, but then once they're done, or when
Mhm.
somebody else gets in, they don't see those same filters. That's all.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
I think clearing and then redirecting will get us that
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah. All right, I'll play with that too. I got that written down.
Okay, wonderful. Yep.
Cool.
Sorry, I can be super helpful there, but hopefully that gives
No,
you
no worries.
something to look at.
I try to find the ones that'll stump you guys. That's all.
Yeah, done.
My goal.
Yeah, mission successful today. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Thank you, sir. Anybody else have any questions today? With the last couple of minutes we have? Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Unmute. Yeah. So, I mean, this is really kind of like an ongoing question, but like with this 21 CFR Part 11 thing that I'm trying to implement, I did some work with Brian this morning, and we did come up with kind of like a workaround. But one of the things that I was I'm just wondering is like I like have a username and a password on a page
Mm-hmm.
to basically allow a user to re-authenticate themselves. And then basically what I do is I have an event button, and basically I click it. I'm sorry, it's actually a visibility rule. So when I click this thing, it basically goes out and validates against Active Directory.
Right,
And
right.
back, and then if it was successful, it basically enables the button that is the button that allows you to continue the flow, kind of thing.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So that's a possible solution. But if the error, if the rule that is doing the validation comes back false, how do I get it to like throw an error? Like right now, it's just not like lighting up the button. Like I'm kind of thinking, like looking at this active flow that you guys have been kind of demoing in version 7, that it seems like there's multiple things that you can do in response to an action with these things. But in version 6, like I'm kind of thinking, do I have to do a validation rule doing exactly the same thing, kind of thing?
Well, we have there is a validation flow type in 6. You can build rules or flows. You could think about it. You could throw pop-ups, or you could unhide hidden text that has like an error text. You could have a section on the form with like error text that's blank or that's hidden that then is there's like a visibility rule that then shows it. Something like that possibly, if just highlighting the particular control as well, and then throwing your custom validation message isn't sufficient.
Okay, so okay, that's that gives me a little bit of an idea, but like I guess in some respects, my ideal scenario is that like I originally wrote it as a sub dialog flow where it basically pops up a dialog to enter your username and password.
Yeah.
So that's great, except for the fact that I don't seem to be able to connect that to an outcome path after it's complete, kind of thing.
The sub dialog flow.
Yeah.
There should be like a cancel and change data outcome paths in that flow.
Yeah, so I mean, so like the cancel basically means that you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the change data basically means that something happened, but I'm not sure how to connect that to basically the button that I want to press to complete my approval.
What I would think is, yeah, so you could declare output data on that change data step in the sub dialog flow. So you could, the simplest example would be to set a string called error message. And then if you basically build up a custom error message. So if it's the authentication fails, you pass the sort of like your username or password is incorrect string, whatever comes back, or whatever you want to just contrive yourself in the flow.
Well, that's not a problem because the actual sub dialog form has that on it. So
okay.
it will just basically, it's got an OK and a cancel button. You press the OK button, and if you don't authenticate properly, basically the two boxes just light up red.
Okay.
And your only choices are to change your try again or to cancel out. So that all of that is handled like in the sub dialog flow. It's really just if you successfully click the OK button and you successfully authenticate, how can I automatically get that to trigger the completion of the whatever that thing's called, task? There we go.
Oh, you want to actually you want to click OK on the sub dialog flow and automatically complete the form underneath it.
If they authenticate,
Yeah,
you know,
you're looking.
appropriately.
You need to look at. Well, the thing you're looking for here is called an outcome rule.
Okay.
It's a form outcome rule. You can automatically complete a form on a rule being true or false. So
Okay.
you could imagine like there's a Boolean. You could have like a hidden Boolean on the parent flow, parent form called autocomplete or something.
Right.
And your subdialog flow sets that value. Right.
Okay.
So you run your subdialog flow, they authenticate correctly. It goes to the change data path, which passes a true value back into the parent form. And then that gets passed to the checkbox, which has like a value change trigger, which is running an outcome rule. So that sequence of events should let you auto submit the parent form from a subdialog. And,
Okay,
and this
great.
is this is the link. I'll drop it in the chat here really quick if you just want to copy it out. But that's that is the thing to use there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks,
Yep.
Alex. Good
Yep, thank
to
you.
hear from you again. Hope your vacation was great.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And Caleb, we email these sometime, I don't know, an hour or two after, once the video compiles and everything, right, Sabrina?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be this afternoon.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
we'll send the links to you. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Appreciate all the questions today. Have a great afternoon.